You know those official-looking documents that sometimes land in your mailbox? Or maybe your inbox?
Uh-huh. The ones you glance at and think, I'll get to that later.
Exactly. And let's be honest, later often means, well, never. But today, we're pulling one right to the top of the pile.
Because it actually holds some real power, doesn't it? Especially if you're an investor.
It really does. We are diving deep into something called a proxy statement. Specifically, one from Apogee Enterprises, Inc.
Apogee, right.
Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to unpack what this thing actually is, why you might have received one, and, maybe most importantly, what critical info it contains about your rights as a shareholder.
And how the big decisions get made in the company.
Think of this as your shortcut, your guide to understanding what's going on with your investment.
And just so everyone knows where this info is coming from, our source material today is, well, it's very official. It's an SEC filing.
SEC?
Yeah, Securities and Exchange Commission. It's called a Schedule 14A, Definitive Additional Materials, filed by Apogee Enterprises itself.
Okay.
It's filed under Section 14A of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. That's the law governing how companies have to communicate this kind of stuff. And interestingly, the filing notes, no fee was required for this one.
Good to know. So it's straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And for anyone listening who has invested in Apogee, the big takeaway right up front is this. Your vote counts.
Absolutely. That's what this is all about.
This document is fundamentally about your voice, your ability to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's unpack the Schedule 14A thing. We know it's official. We know it's from Apogee. But what is it really? Why does it matter if you own shares?
Well, think of it as like a formal heads up about the upcoming shareholder meeting, like a detailed invitation, maybe.
An invitation you shouldn't ignore.
Definitely not. Because it's more than just a date and time. It gives you, the shareholder, the way to cast your votes on really important company stuff, even if you can't physically or virtually attend the meeting itself.
So it's the mechanism for voting?
Exactly. Though it's important, the document itself actually says, and this is usually in caps, this is not a votable ballot.
Ah, okay. So it's not the ballot itself.
Right. It calls itself an overview of the more complete proxy materials. Oh. It points you towards where you can find all the details you need to make informed choices.
Gotcha. An overview and a guide. That makes sense. So speaking of details, what are the specifics for Apogee's meeting? When is it? Where?
Okay, so this is for their 2025 annual meeting. It's scheduled for June 25, 2025. The time is 8:00 a.m. Central Time.
Huh.
So be mindful of the time zone there.
Central Time, right. And is it in person?
No, and this is pretty common now. It's going to be held virtually.
Ah, online.
Yep. The place to go is www.virtualshareholdermeeting.com, APOG 2025. The document also mentions, you should check the actual meeting materials for any special requirements for attending, just in case.
Good tip. Always read the fine print. So you have this right to vote. How do you actually do it? And are there deadlines looming?
Yeah, deadlines are key. The main way they push you towards is voting online. They give a specific website, usually something like www.proxyvote.com.
Proxyvote.com. Easy enough.
Pretty standard. And you'll need your specific control number, which is printed right there on the notice you received. V69797P26223 is the one listed here for this example.
V69797P26223. Okay.
And they even mention a smartphone option. Point your camera at a QR code, and it might log you in without even typing the number. Pretty handy.
Nice. Technology making it easier. What about those deadlines?
Right. This is critical. There are actually 2 different deadlines mentioned for Apogee.
Yeah.
For most shares, the deadline to vote is June 24th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Note, that's Eastern Time.
Okay. June 24th, basically midnight ET.
But, and this is important, if your shares are held in some kind of plan, like maybe an employee stock plan.
Oh, okay.
The deadline is earlier. It's June 23, 2025 at 12:00 p.m. Eastern Time. So noon ET on the 23rd. You really need to check which applies to you.
That's a big difference. Definitely need to pay attention to how you hold your shares. What if you want more than just the overview? Say you want the full report, or maybe you just prefer paper.
You can definitely get more info. The full detailed proxy materials are available online, again at www.proxyvote.com. But if you want a paper copy or even an email copy, you can request one for free. But there's a deadline for that request too. For Apogee, it says you need to ask before June 11th, 2025.
Okay, so, well, in advance of the meeting, how do you request it?
They give options. Usually a phone number. Here it's 1-800-579-1639, or an email address, sendmaterial@proxyvote.com. You'll need to give them your control number, probably in the subject line if you email.
Makes sense.
And they state pretty clearly, unless requested, you will not otherwise receive a paper or email copy. So you have to actively ask.
Opt in, not opt out.
Exactly. And they also mention while you're on proxyvote.com, you can usually click on delivery settings and choose to get future materials by email automatically if you prefer that. Save some trees, maybe.
Good option. Okay, so we know how to vote and get info. Let's get to the really interesting part. What are shareholders actually voting on? What are the proposals? And what's the board saying?
Right, the substance. So the notice lists the key items up for vote. And for all the items listed here, the board of directors recommends voting for...
Okay, 4 across the board from them. What's item 1?
Item 1 is the election of directors. Specifically, they're nominating 2 Class 3 directors, Elizabeth M. Lilly and Mark A. Pompa.
Electing directors. That sounds pretty fundamental.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
You're essentially choosing the people who will oversee the company's strategy, its management, its financial health. It's a big deal.
Okay, what's next?
Item 2 is an advisory vote to approve Apog's executive compensation. This is often called say on pay.
Advisory, so it doesn't legally bind them?
Technically, no, it's non-binding, but don't underestimate it. It's a very direct way for shareholders to tell the board whether they think the executives are being paid fairly or, appropriately.
So a strong against vote would send a message.
A very loud message. Boards take these votes seriously, even if they aren't legally required to act on them immediately. It impacts reputation, future planning, everything.
Interesting. Okay, item 3.
Item 3 is another advisory vote. This one is to ratify the appointment of Deloitte & Touche, LLP, as our independent registered public accounting firm for the fiscal year ending February 28th, 2026.
Ratify the accountants, Deloitte & Touche. Sounds standard.
It is pretty standard, but still important. This is you, the shareholder, giving your stamp of approval on the company's choice of external auditor.
The ones who check the books.
Exactly. They play a crucial role in financial transparency and making sure the numbers are reliable. So while often routine, it's a key piece of corporate governance.
Got it. Directors, exec pay, auditors, all recommended for by the board. Now, there's a 4th item mentioned here, item 4. It sounds a bit open-ended.
Ah, yes, the discretionary clause.
It says, in their discretion, the proxies are authorized to vote upon such other business as may properly be brought before the meeting. What does that really mean?
It means that the people designated as proxies, usually members of management or the board, who you authorize to vote on your behalf if you send in your proxy card or vote online.
Right.
They get the authority to vote your shares on any other matters that might come up during the actual meeting, things that weren't listed specifically on the proxy statement.
So, like surprises.
Well, properly brought is the key phrase there. It has to follow the company's rules, the bylaws, SEC regulations. So it's not like someone can just stand up and propose anything wildly off topic.
Okay, so not complete chaos.
No, not usually.
Okay.
It's more often for procedural things, maybe minor amendments, or something that genuinely couldn't be finalized when the proxy materials were printed. But it does grant those proxies significant flexibility.
So when you vote by proxy, you're trusting them not just on the listed items, but also on any of these potential other business items?
That's exactly right. You're giving them your voting power, including that discretion. It really highlights why it matters who the designated proxies are, though often it's just company management.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's try and wrap this up. We've gone through this apogee proxy notice, this Schedule 14A.
Yeah, quite a bit in there.
We've seen it's the key for shareholders to participate, detailing the when and how for the virtual annual meeting on June 25th.
Right, the logistics, the voting deadlines, especially that split deadline depending on how you hold shares.
And we've looked at the actual decisions on the table. Electing directors, having a say on executive pay, approving the auditors.
And that discretionary clause.
It really shows the kind of corporate decisions shareholders get to weigh in on.
And if we kind of zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture, these documents, these proxy statements, they aren't just paperwork. They are absolutely fundamental to how corporate governance works.
How companies are run, basically.
Yeah, and transparency. It's the main way individual investors, people like you listening, whether you have 10 shares or 10,000, can actually exert some influence over the company's direction.
Influence leadership choices, pay practices.
Financial oversight through the auditor choice. It really is your connection, your line into the boardroom, in a way.
A direct line.
Definitely. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on.
Okay.
We talked about ratifying the auditors, Deloitte and Touche in this case. It seems routine, right? We're almost rubber stamping.
Yeah, feels like it.
But how might your vote, aggregated with thousands of others on something that's seemingly routine, subtly shape the company's attitude towards financial scrutiny? Or maybe even influence its long-term reputation for financial integrity in the market?
Huh. So even the standard votes have deeper ripples.
They can. It's all interconnected, perhaps more than we sometimes realize.
That's a great point. Food for thought, indeed. So, thinking about everything we've just unpacked, what stands out to you about this deep dive?